Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into what it takes to build a healthy life, from the very beginning. We're going to look at everything from how a kid learns to move, all the way to some of the really specific challenges that female athletes face. We'll break down the official guidelines, look at common physical issues, and explore that crucial link between our minds and our bodies in sports.
But let's kick things off with a simple question that gets right to the heart of it all: physical awareness. So, right now, wherever you are, how are you sitting? Are you slouched over? Leaning to one side? Just taking a second to check in, like that, is exactly where our journey begins. Understanding how our bodies are meant to move, starting from day one.
All right, first up, we're going to walk through the World Health Organization's official guide to movement. This is basically the roadmap for how much activity we should be getting throughout our entire lives.
So the WHO doesn't just have one blanket recommendation. Instead, they break down our lives into 6 key stages. You can see them here, from infancy all the way up to 65 and beyond. And as you'd expect, what our bodies need at each stage is pretty different.
In those first few years, it is all about building a solid foundation. For infants, that means lots and lots of floor time to crawl and roll around. The source actually recommends a mat that's at least 7 by 4 feet. For toddlers, the goal is to keep them moving, and to make sure they're not stuck in a stroller or a high chair for more than an hour at a time. And here's the big one, for both groups. The official recommendation is absolutely 0 screen time.
Then we get to this magic number, 180. That is the number of minutes a day that a preschooler should be active. Now, this isn't about one long workout session. It's about weaving activity of all kinds into their whole day and making sure at least 60 of those minutes count as energetic play.
This table just lays it all out so perfectly. When we're young, it's about building a strong base with exercises that get more complex over time. Focusing on heart and bone health. As we hit adulthood, the game changes to maintaining that muscle mass we've built. And then, for older adults, the focus shifts again, this time to balance and mobility, starting slow and building up from there.
Okay, so all that movement is great, but what happens when our daily habits, like how we sit or stand, start to work against us? That brings us to our next topic, postural deformities and how they can literally shape our health.
So what even is a postural deformity? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's when our body gets pulled out of its natural healthy alignment. And this can be caused by all sorts of things, from a poor diet to something as simple as the chair you sit in every single day.
Let's start from the ground up, with the legs. You've probably heard of these 2 common issues. First, there's knock knees, where the knees curve inward and literally knock against each other. And then you've got the opposite, bow legs, where there's a big gap between the knees, making them look bowed.
So, how do you go about correcting something like knock knees? Well, it really starts with figuring out the root cause, which is often a lack of vitamin D and calcium or obesity. Then it's about taking precautions, like making sure a child's diet is balanced. And finally, there are actual remedies. And get this, the source points out that horse riding is a super effective one because it naturally strengthens all the right muscles to align the legs. Pretty cool, right?
Now, let's talk about the spine. There's actually a really simple way to remember the 3 main types of curvature problems. Just think of the letters L, K, and S. Lordosis is an inward curve in the lower back, shaped kind of like an L. Kyphosis is an outward curve of the upper back, which you can think of as a K. And scoliosis is that sideways curve that makes an S shape down the spine.
You know what's really fascinating here is that the causes and the solutions are basically 2 sides of the same coin. An imbalanced diet, the fix is a balanced one. Bad posture from a bad chair, the fix is a supportive chair and better habits. The idea is simple. You just have to systematically swap out those bad habits for good ones.
Okay, let's zoom out a little. We've been focused on the mechanics of the body, but physical activity doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? It's tied to all these social and psychological factors. So now we're going to pivot and look at the specific barriers and benefits for women in sports using India as our case study.
So why is it that female participation in sports can be so low sometimes? Well, it's not just one thing. It's this whole complex web of issues. We're talking about everything from societal pressures and a lack of female role models to very practical problems like not enough female coaches or just basic safety concerns. It's a huge, multifaceted challenge.
But here's the flip side. Despite all those barriers, the benefits of getting women into sports are just massive. I mean, they span across every aspect of life. Physically, you're looking at stronger bones and less risk of disease. Psychologically, it's a huge confidence booster and a great way to manage stress.
And socially, it teaches incredible skills like teamwork and leadership.
And that brings us perfectly to our final and really crucial section. We're going to talk about a very specific health issue that affects active women, and it's known as the female athlete triad.
They call it the triad because it's this dangerous interplay of three different but very much connected conditions. At the three corners of this triangle, you have osteoporosis, which is about bone health, amenorrhea, which is about menstrual function, and eating disorders, which deal with nutrition and mental health.
So the first point of that triangle is osteoporosis. This is when bones lose their mineral density and become weak and brittle. To fight against this, the source gets really specific. It recommends that female athletes get 1,000 milligrams of calcium every single day to keep their bones strong.
The second part of the triad is amenorrhea, which is basically menstrual dysfunction. It shows up in two main ways. There's primary amenorrhea, which is when a girl's cycle hasn't even started by the time she's 16. And then there's secondary amenorrhea, which is when someone who had a regular cycle suddenly stops having it for 3 months or more. For athletes, this is often the body's reaction to intense physical stress.
This quote really gets to the heart of the triad's third component, eating disorders. It's about what's going on inside an athlete's head. It describes a situation where thoughts about food, dieting, and body weight just become a constant, all-consuming obsession.
And the source breaks down two of the major types. First, you have anorexia nervosa, which is driven by an intense fear of gaining weight and leads to restriction and self-starvation. On the other hand, you have bulimia nervosa, which is a destructive cycle of binging on huge amounts of food and then purging.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? It's that our health is this deeply interconnected system. Everything from the way you sit at your desk, to the food you eat, to the people who support you, it's all part of the same picture. Just being aware of that is the first step. So I'll leave you with this question. What's the one small change you're going to make for your health today?